Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to make this elk season your best season yet? If you answered yes, my friends, you are in the right place. From the Western Huntsman podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, welcome to the School of September, the most comprehensive elk hunting series on the planet. We bring you the world's top archery elk experts to talk strategy, calling, and everything else to get you one step closer to some of your wildest dreams. From the Broken Time Studio to your knowledge toolbox, class is in session. I'd like to welcome Mystery Ranch as a sponsor to the Western Huntsman. This is a great product. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Mysterium line. Those packs include the Sawtooth 45, the Sawtooth 65, the Beartooth 85, and the Marshall 105, depending on what you're doing with the pack. If you from day pack to backcountry, plenty of space. I like what they wrote on the website. Between the disciplines of calculated preparation and in-the-moment focus, an intangible alchemy exists. We call it Mysterium. It is our most ambitious, tech-rich line of Mystery Ranch hunting packs constructed for the most methodical hunters. I'd agree with that. It's a great pack, guys. I really like the ventilation system. When you put it on, it's nice and tight, but you're still breathing a little bit less of that buildup between the pack and your back when you're sweating and out there packing through the mountains and whatnot. It's a super functional pack, very comfortable. Very good at carrying loads. I've been using it all spring between bear and just like I do a lot of rucking to keep in shape, and it has done a phenomenal job. I've got a lot of top-of-the-line packs out there, and I've always kind of geeked out with packs, but I really do like the weight distribution and the way that it allows you multiple options as to where you're going to either carry a water bladder or one of those Contigo containers or whatever you're going to use. Really impressed. I love the ease of how everything functions on it too. You don't need to watch a bunch of videos to figure out how to undo everything to pack a bunch of meat out. That's really important for a guy like me, I promise. I'm not super smart. So the simplicity, the comfort, the load distribution, it all makes for a wonderful backcountry hunting pack. If you are in the market, check it out at mysteryranch.com/mysterium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this next installment of School of September, brought to you by the Western Huntsman podcast and Eastman's Hunting Journals. Coming at you not from the Broken Time Studio today. I'm here with my buddy Rob Yoder. If you remember, he was on the show this last winter. I almost said last fall. And we are going to do a School of September. So we are sitting here in Heron, Montana at the Elk Creek Outfitting Lodge. And I can't think of a better backdrop. And Rob, I appreciate you doing this, brother.
It's a pleasure to be invited. I'm glad to be here.
So I wanted to, just so you guys know listening, Rob has a lot of experience on the, when we're talking archery September, getting creative, thinking outside the box. Because you guys know, usually with School of September, what we talk about, we talk a lot of calling, we talk a lot of, locating elk in different types of country and terrain. And today we're going to be talking a lot about how to get in on an elk, maybe not using calls as much, some kind of outside of the box type strategies. Maybe the elk aren't talking, or maybe you don't know how to call. Maybe you are hunting an area that, I hear a lot of people talk about, well, this area is bad for calling. And I don't know if I ever believe that that's the case, but if that is the case, I think we can cover some different strategies and stuff. And we're also going to kind of dive into those of you out there that are going out with an outfitter this year. We're going to dive into some stuff like expectations, things to have ready, maybe some gear list items. I don't know. We'll just kind of kick it around here, Rob. You got any other ideas you want me to throw in there?
Oh, well, I think all the above is good. And, primarily speaking, we'll be talking about public land.
Yeah.
A lot of western Montana is public land. And given even if you have private land access, it's not all bad. but most of the time the same elk are on public land at some point or most of the time.
That's kind of what I found, especially like around here, is, we have a lot of low country private access and private land, but the elk seem to be up high.
Yes, definitely so, especially early archery season when it's real warm out. Bulls are still bachelor groups. Up high on the north side in the timber, generally speaking, that's where they're going to be. They're already getting their winter hair on and starting to get ready for colder temperatures, but it's still warm out, so they're going to be in the coolest spots.
Yeah, for sure. One really good thing about having you on the show here, Rob, I want us all to think about like coastal Washington, coastal Oregon, northwest Montana, north Idaho, western Washington, eastern Washington. We're not talking about central Washington. You can watch your dog run away for 3 days. It's so open and flat out there. But I'm talking about that real thick, old growth, almost. I've called parts of North Idaho like the rainforest, and I've called this around us like, I don't know if that video's showing anything behind us, but that thick coniferous, just real old growth timber. Dark timber everywhere. This is not a place that bodes itself very well to like sitting up on a ridge and glassing. When you're out there, because you've been hunting this country a long time, and you're glassing's not a great option, and maybe the elk aren't talking. What are you doing to come up with a game plan to locate elk?
Man, it can be tricky, but like you said, this is dark, thick timber, generally very steep. So you're not gonna see a whole lot of elk, and you'll be on a lot of sign, but you're not gonna see a whole lot of elk until you're in bow range already. But no, as far as locating elk, public land, generally speaking, in the mornings, light bugles or light calls. Very rarely do you see me get hot and heavy with them until you've found the right bull in the right time. A lot of it's, trying to sound as elk-like as you can, whether it be how you walk through the woods, because it is pretty quiet in September. So little things like, so let's say you're just doing a blind sat. You don't have a bugle, you're in fresh sign. There's times I'll be sitting there, I'll get a hunter set up with the wind direction or how the topography of the land sits, and just maybe a few light mews, but then doing things like, I don't know, pulling vegetation off of the branches.
So kind of mimicking them feeding off that shrubbery kind
feeding.
Of stuff. Yeah.
And then even elk make a fair amount of noise when they walk over the dry ground. And so you just ball your fist up and just do little thumps here and there as they're, say, rotating around the bush to eat on another side or something like that. And then just expect one to come in silent. Always be ready for that quiet bull.
And how I want to talk about that for a minute, because that's come up a lot on the show lately is these silent bulls that have been kicking my butt for the last, I don't know what it is. It's like the last 3 seasons. For some reason, I've had a lot of silent bulls come in, and I get totally busted. So can you walk us through like whether you have a client or you're just out hunting for yourself? Oh, and for anybody, I guess we should cover this real quick, man, because anybody that's maybe you didn't tune into the last episode, Rob Yoder here is the managing guide here at Elk Creek Outfitting. You've been guiding here for what, 20 years?
22 years now. Yeah,
22 years.
Working on 23.
Yep. So this will be 23 this fall.
This fall.
So needless to say, he's got socks that have more guiding experience than I do. And I've been out with Rob. If you guys were watching on the old Instagram there, he's the one I was talking about when I went out and got that giant mountain lion. That was because of Rob.
That was a good time.
that was not me. That was Rob, and his incredible hounds. And so Rob is just like an all-around hunter. He's a great archery hunter. He's a great long-range hunter. He's a great houndsman. He's a great predator hunter. You name it, Rob can do it here in Northwest Montana. And I'm just trying to give you guys like a quick snapshot in case you didn't hear the episode from last time where we really go into his background a lot more. You guys should check it out. It came out. I should have had that ready. I'm not. My phone's recording video, so I can't check the phone. Anyways, It was from this last winter, guys. Check that episode out. It's a really good one. But anyway, so that said, we covered that. Rob is literally he probably is the best hunter that I've ever personally gone out hunting with. So I don't say that lightly, and so I want you guys just to know what we're talking about here. Rob has a lot of experience and can really speak to it. So what were we talking about before we got derailed there?
Archery hunting, more silent bulls.
The more silent bulls. So that was kind of some of the questions. The bulls coming in quiet. That's what it was.
They're a hard bull to kill. I mean, they're so hard because they're going to use the wind to their advantage. They don't have any schedule that they have to be on, so they're going to take their time. And I can't tell you enough how many people get caught with their pants down.
Oh, me, all the time.
Nonstop, because you don't know if they're coming or not. You're in fresh sign, obviously, and you got the wind direction the way you think they're going to come in, but they didn't get that big being dumb.
Exactly.
And this country allows them to I guess, reach their full potential. That's something I really enjoy when I go into these woods, is the rugged, thick terrain gives these bulls an absolute advantage to reach their full potential.
Because they're harder to hunt here, right?
They're so hard to hunt.
I think it was like Randy Newberg or somebody was saying when they drive through like northwest Montana or North Idaho, he's like, this has got to be one of the only places that bulls die of old age.
Yeah, and that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And running trail cameras a lot in the off season, you do get pictures of some of them old bulls that are still out there, and that's very inspiring. And then you pick up their sheds and whatnot in the winter range. Like this year, I picked up a stud 7x7 set that we've never seen during hunting season. We know he's there.
He's so smart.
Yeah, they just use this terrain to their advantage, and it is so hard to outsmart them.
So let me run some scenarios by you. So we go into some of this thick timber, like the stuff we're talking about here. Maybe the bulls aren't talking. But you get in somewhere, maybe there's a hot wallow, meaning an active wallow. Mm-hmm. There's fresh tracks around it. There's elk crap on the ground. Maybe you could smell them. Maybe there's a few rubs here and there. And so, but they're not talking. So is that where you're talking about maybe you try to set up some kind of cold calling sequence, if you will? Is that what you would call it?
Yes. Yep. That would be a scenario. No, general rule of thumb, I don't like to call in and around a wallow that I'm planning to sit at a later day. Not always the case, but generally speaking, I don't want them to associate us to it. So if I have the opportunity, I'll be in the next canyon over or the next mountain range or whatever that looks like if I'm going to be doing any type of calling. So
you get, okay, that's a good point, because I never... We've talked about that a lot on the show too, where it's like, oh, we found a nice wallow. Let's let out some bugles, and I've done that.
Yeah, and that's something that
you bugger them out, and they never come back.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're planning on sitting any amount of time at that wallow, that's when I would not do any calling personally.
So okay, let's stick with that then, because I'm going to actually years ago. This was on the North Idaho side. Years ago, I found me and my buddy Steve Johnson were out hunting. Well, actually, we weren't hunting together, but we kind of hunted these same two drainages often. Steve's one of the guys I'm trying to get to come up here and guide with us, by the way. He's awesome. But I found this wallow. We called it the 100-year wallow because it just was like old. You could tell it had just been there a long time. Yep. There's rubs from like 30 years ago, and so I get into a screaming match with this bull, and he was one of those real old, like growly, those raspy, nasty bulls.
Those are ones that keep you up at night.
He does still to this day. So I never did get eyes on this bull. I don't know if he winded me or if something else happened. He buggers off. I spent like another week and a half hunting this wallow, and I never came across him again. And I'm suspicious that it is what you thought. He busted me somehow. He probably winded me. And after that, he associated that wallow with some dude there that was making a ruckus with a bugle tube or whatever the elk thought. So I like that advice.
It is so hard to get past their noses like that. And even if, let's say, they don't come in, but hours later after the dust settles, then they come in and still smell you. Mm-hmm. You know, then they're like, hey, you know,
yeah,
the gig's up. It's time to move to another secure place.
So based on that kind of information, let's say, okay, we found an area. We've got plenty of elk sign around. Maybe we moved a few hundred yards off a wallow or whatever, but there's still a lot of elk sign. We're going to do like one of these cold calling sequences. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for? Like, let's put it into perspective. Whether it's like another guide with some clients out there listening, or you know, a couple guys going out with their buddies, and they're going to kind of, maybe there's 3 of them, because I think that's a pretty common thing.
That is real common.
One guide and 2 people kind of thing. Yep. And so this same thing would play out if there's 3 buddies out there just hunting. So one, and I'm just kind of going off of what you said earlier, so totally correct me. One guy maybe making some cow calls, some light mews, and maybe doing some rubbing, maybe doing a little bit of what you were talking about, kind of picking that brush and that shrubbery off of there and stomping on the ground.
Just little things like that, anything to think outside the box. A common mistake I see a lot of hunters make is trying to hustle the bull up, calling a little bit more than they should. We're talking public land bulls that are generally, they've already been hunted,
toyed with, yeah.
And so they're a little leery, and they generally play a cat and mouse even among themselves. So I personally, if that bull doesn't elevate on his own, sometimes I'll play him out a little bit and try to get him elevated. But if he's not doing it, it's best to just work the curiosity level, stay as quiet, not super quiet, but keep it low, like low tone.
Yeah.
We're not trying to call elk across the ridge. We're trying to get that elk that's just around this little ridge here.
Okay.
To make the final, 100-yard walk in or something of that nature.
How are you setting the guys up? Like, I'm assuming you're the one going to be making the sounds. What are you looking for in terms of, like, are there terrain features that you look for that you see it and it's like, man, in my mind, that makes the most sense, that bull's going to come here, and it like kind of has some accuracy to it?
Yep. So we're pretty ridge rich in this country. So a lot of times a bull doesn't mind coming to a certain point to where he can look over and see what he's expecting to. So you're giving him the opportunity to get to a vantage point where he can see where the calls are coming from or even beyond. And so at that point, let's just take a gradual slope or a ridge line or a saddle. Let's take a saddle for an example. He'll come to that saddle naturally to look over and see what's on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so if you can set up a hunter or your shooters on either side of that saddle, obviously with enough obstruction between each other and some distance, so they don't accidentally shoot in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. But yet if a bull comes in between them, hopefully before he gets there, one of them can get a shot at him. But if you watch the wind, of course, that's first and foremost important. But then giving him the opportunity to get to a vantage point where he can see safely what's going on.
What recommendations would you have for the actual shooters that are setting up? Like, are you like one of the things I always talk about is, I don't really care if you're wearing camo or not. I think that camo is going to be helpful in most cases, but at the same time, you could be in a flannel and jeans, but the biggest thing is wind, and make sure you're kind of in some shadows, and don't necessarily block yourself by trying to hide behind a tree and think that you're Robin Hood.
Correct. That's a big one. Like to not get behind something, but get in front of it, and don't move a lot, if at all.
Yeah.
If a bull is coming in quiet, you don't generally know that he's coming in quiet, but you still have to remain still. A lot of guys, a common mistake is the what I call rubbernecking. They're looking left, right. Well, a bull can see that much further than what we can see him at. And the other thing is, stay in the shadows. Don't stay in the sunlight. Don't let that sunlight come around and bake you on the face. Any of that. Yeah. That really sticks out.
Do you, out of curiosity, do you ever wear camo paint?
I don't. Generally because I'm the guide. I don't want to be seen. I stay far enough out of the picture. Yeah. Now, if my if my hunters want to wear it, I absolutely encourage it. Either that or keep the bow in front of your face to break your silhouette.
Yeah. I think the silhouette is the biggest thing. And one thing I always kind of try to tell people, everybody gets so focused on when, like, they're in, and this is going to be the case whether you're hunting deer, bear, elk, archery, rifle, it doesn't matter. People get so focused on trying to locate and look for an animal. I'm looking for a bear moving through the brush. I'm looking through for, like, if we're in this scenario, we have a feeling that maybe a bull is coming in, and we're hopeful that a bull is going to come in quiet, and our shooters are going to see that bull and somebody's going to have a shot. Don't look for an elk. Look for movement, and that's my
That's
opinion.
a big one.
How do you kind of describe that to your hunters?
Well, when hunting in the timber, there's an illusion of we can easily see, let's say, 20 yards. So we expect them to see the elk in 20 yards, but look in the broken areas beyond the 20 yards, and even out to 40 yards, you can see. Let's say your comfort range or your terrain is going to let you maybe shoot 20 yards, 30 yards. But if you can see broken holes out there 40, 50 yards, that's where you want to start looking for the movement. That way you have an advantage a little bit as far as, getting your final prep ready for when he's at 20 yards.
Yeah, because it's so amazing. We're talking about 700-pound animals. And it's just, and I don't want to sound like a broken record when I say this, but these elk live here full time and they do this for a living. They've got hunters after them. They've got wolves after them. They've got grizz and black bear after their calves.
They don't miss a beat.
They just don't miss anything.
No,
and so the way they can slither their way through this dark, it's amazing because, if they don't care to be quiet, they're the loudest animal in the woods.
Yep.
But when they're being cautious or they're curious, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, just behaviorally, and I'd love to get your take on it, but I've been talking about how elk are a lot more curious than I think we as hunters give them credit for.
That's a fact.
They're super social. Yep. They're very curious about who's around. That's why this sequence that you're talking about, calling them silent bulls, can be so effective.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about that, what you found.
Well, another tactic I like to use is, I generally carry a small antler that I can rake with, or even show a little bit if he's hung up out there far enough to where he's not going to be able to see the whole elk over here, but he can see some tine movement, something that seeing is believing. I've had it close the deal many times.
Really?
But you can also there's a very distinct tone that comes with using an antler for rake and brush. I'm not talking smashing and cracking and breaking. I'm just talking raking the fine greens like you see elk do when they're rubbing their glands and whatnot.
So like a small raghorn antler kind of thing?
A raghorn's perfect because it has that long tine there at the end, the main beam. Well, that fits right in the belt pocket. So then you can carry it comfortably, and when you pull it out, it's right there ready to go. And otherwise, it's out of the way.
I have that Mystery Ranch pack it's got this side pouch that I can stick this. I've got this raghorn horn because you're not the first person to tell me that.
That's a deadly tactic,
man. In fact, we dubbed a name for it last year with Bradley Damerman. I called it the Damerman Death Horn. That's what he's doing. He's raking in elk with this raghorn. Yeah.
And I've used that antler without any calls.
Really?
And called in bulls with it.
And you're just kind of lightly rubbing it on some...
Yeah, just when you get into fresh sign, I think that's a key note. Once you get into the fresh sign, you know them elk were here this morning or sometime throughout the night. They're not far. And so also an elk will comfortably go back where they just were, more so than the other direction.
Really?
And so if you happen to get into their bedding area with them and they don't know you're there, that's when that can be pretty effective.
Okay, I need you to walk me through this a little bit more. So what are you looking for to rub that antler on? Like what?
Fresh rubs.
Fresh rubs?
When you walk in and you see fresh bed, fresh scads, fresh tracks in the dust, or a fresh rub right there, all the key indicators that leads me to believe that within the last 24 hours there was elk standing right here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so I found that that's probably it's hard to say easiest, but because elk are tough. But you have an advantage calling them back where they just were versus the other direction if the wind's right.
Yeah. You don't want to give your Rob Yoder Elk Creek guarantee this is going to work for you in the wisdom.
Well, when you're hunting public land, everything's fair chase. And I think that's what gives us that's what keeps us coming back so often. If it was a bulletproof way to do it and it would work every time, it would kind of lose its fun after a while.
I know, man. I was talking about that on the last episode for School of September. Is like when I first started School of September 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, man, I hope I don't run out of things to talk about when it comes to elk hunting and different strategies. But the amazing thing is I always find guys like you that have like a different take and a different strategy. And, nobody's right or wrong, but there are people that have a little more salt. There's
Absolutely.
a little more salt. They've got the experience,
And I will say, talking to, we got 20-ish guides that come through here. Each one of them has little tactics that seem to work for them. I don't think anybody's got it 100% mastered, but every guide really has a passion for it, and they try to think outside the box, given the situation, where they're at, what's the bull's personality that they're trying to talk to, what are the elk doing at that time, time of day, all the above. But each guide is just a little bit different. And
I'm gonna sneeze. Anyways, it's that time of year. I think my allergies are going nuts here. And that's kind of the beauty of it. I've got our buddy Bob Kapka, Bugling Bob.
Oh yeah, he's got some tactics.
Yeah, he's coming on Wednesday.
All right,
so I'm going to record with him. But
good.
What'd be fun is if I just, instead of guiding in September, I'll just come up to the lodge, and every time one of the guides they get an elk down, I'll do a podcast with them, and they'll walk us through how they did it.
there is a lot of tactics there, but there's a couple of guys, like I was just talking to Micah the other day, and a few of the tactics that he was talking very passionately that's worked for him over the years, and he gets lots of shots on bulls. So some are tactics I've never thought of, but he's thinking outside the box, and it works for him.
Look, can we touch on that for a minute, like outside the box type of stuff? Because I think that we get in this. There's like a few really popular YouTube channels out there, and there's like a few podcasts out there where, like, I think that we get it in our mind that elk hunting in September is this thing where you just get out there, get on a trail, and you blow a bugle every 10 feet and fire up 10 different bulls, and they're coming in. And, because sometimes those YouTube things, as fun as they are to watch, they could be misleading.
They can be.
They're taking 2 weeks worth of hunting and condensing it down into 20 minutes,
or less.
Or less, yeah. And so, I like to get away from, because, and let me preface this by saying, everybody wants, I keep remembering we're filming over here, the video here, but everybody kind of wants to be in that situation where you're out there, you rip out a big nasty bugle, and you get this mean old 7-point bull that's all fired up and protective of his herd, and he's just screaming back at you, and he comes in just snarling, blowing snot, and rolling his eyes. And
in the picture perfect world, that's what we all dream of.
It's the sexiest way to do it.
Absolutely. And it can happen like that. I'm not throwing that out, but there are times where you gotta do what's called the silent treatment, and that is, let's say you have a bull that's talking to you, but he'll only come to a certain point and he hangs up. And this could play this cat and mouse game all day long. Like, it might not just be for 15 minutes. It may be for 6-8 hours. And finally, just dropping a hunter right where I think he's going to come, and I walk away, and I just keep leaving. Maybe
while you're bugling.
While I'm letting him know I'm leaving, and I don't give a darn anymore. And many of times they just can't handle that. And so they finally break that that area that they've been holed up on, rather it be an obstacle that they don't want to cross, or it's a bench they don't want to leave, or something of that nature. Finally, they're just like, I gotta go. So.
Yeah, that's a great method. That's also that's how this isn't a bear hunting episode, but that's a great way on a bear bait, if you're baiting them, to have two people walk in, refreshing all that bait and everything, and then have one guy walk back out and even slam the door back at the truck a mile away or whatever. Those bears think they're safe, man.
Yep.
No, that's great. It's stuff like that. It's that out of the box stuff that
absolutely,
because and I don't know what it is. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about this, but some days you go out and it's like the conditions feel right. The temperature feels right. The cloud cover maybe
that's
is
hard to beat. Once it's all lines up, you just feel it in the mornings.
Yeah, but and then you get out there and you start, every little sound you make, you're getting responding bugles, and those days do happen. We get in these rut fests, and those are so much fun. But there's also those days where none of that aligns.
Absolutely.
And now it's like, okay, I've been beating the brush all morning. I haven't had a peep of a bugle come back to me. I haven't seen any fresh sign. What are some other things that you've done in the past that have you've done to try to change the game, maybe change your luck, so to speak? Because I believe in elk hunting, we create our own luck in a lot of cases, and then sometimes luck just happens,
Well, I'll give you a situation here. It's maybe 2-3 years ago, and this bull ended up winning us just the last minute. I mean, just before the arrow was released, he did bust us. But we were at a watering hole. It's not necessarily a wallow, but a watering hole. And I've got a bull that's a couple hundred yards away. He's through the draw up the other side, and the wind is wrong for us to go over there. So I needed him to cross that creek, which is really tough to get a bull to do when you're calling to him. He'll cross it on his own, no problem. But when you're talking to him, for whatever reason, he'll go back and forth on the other side a lot. And this particular time, I decided, you know what? I'm just going to do that silent treatment where I leave. And I left and I walked up the hill maybe just a few hundred yards. And I put the bugle away, and now I'm just doing soft cow calls once in a while, very little. But I'm doing more of the beat the ground thumping and then splashing in that water hole, like a few cows that are maybe frolicking around with the calves. And this bull, he couldn't take it. He could not handle it. He thought part of his herd is leaving him without him, and he needed to come round us up. And he finally broke his little bench that he was on, and he come across the creek, and he started right up towards us. And I mean, he was bringing the woods with him. He was tearing everything up along the way. He was not happy about this. And I had a great setup with two of my hunters from, I believe, Oregon. And the one guy came to full draw just as this nice big 6-point herd bull come right out, and then the guy that was below him, the wind direction wasn't right for him. And so the bull whirled. He caught a whiff of that, and that was the end of that show. But that thinking outside the box part, where I left that bull and I walked away from him and went to that water hole and just acted like a few cows and calves that are doing their midday stuff.
I love that. See, I'm going to try that this year. So, for me, I need to hear that kind of stuff because I've always been such a solo hunter. I've almost exclusively I've hunted alone for years.
That's hats off to a solo hunter that can pull it off and get some bow calls.
I'm not saying I pulled anything off, but
it's a lot of fun.
I've killed a couple of them that way, but it's way harder, man. I just you have to get real creative with your calling alone. Do you do any solo hunting in September, or you're mostly just kind of guiding?
I'm pretty well wrapped up with guiding.
Yeah.
I very rarely nowadays get a chance to hunt for myself by myself because I've got teenagers.
Yeah, me too.
At home, so when you do get a break from guiding, they want to go hunting.
Let me ask you this: you just triggered something in my because that's kind of what my world has been is. Shiloh and Pays, they're now, especially Shiloh, she just wants to go elk.
Yeah.
She was so mad at me last year because I kept going to the Idaho side, and she didn't have an Idaho tag. But I knew I had this bull located, and he'd always talk to me. I just couldn't quite get one in him. But anyway, like one of the things that I was talking to with my daughter is like, hey, any elk with a bow is a trophy.
Oh yeah,
100%. What tips would you have for the hunter out there? And this is not going to be an opportunity for everybody, but like here in Northwest Montana, during archery season, we can on that elk tag you can kill a cow, and you cannot during rifle season. And then I know like. Well, I obviously everybody listening, you just have to check your regs for whatever region you're hunting throughout the American West, because it really does change a lot. Like it's super different, like North Idaho versus Southern Idaho, that kind of stuff. Whether or not you can shoot a cow, but I know a lot of people just want to fill their freezer. Do you have any tips for somebody with a bow? How they can get out there, because cows, they're not necessarily going to get all fired up and get in a screaming match with you.
No, but there are many cases though where that cow is going to come in before the bull.
Really?
In the event you're able to get that herd bull to move at all, he's probably because his cows are coming. That's kind of a broad question as far as should I shoot a cow versus a bull. The quick answer is no, because the bull's right there.
Yeah.
But a trophy is different in everybody's, in anybody's opinion, a trophy is different. And if you're a client and you're booking a 6-day hunt on a public land fair chase archery elk hunt, yeah, if you're happy with that elk and he's giving you a good broadside shot, absolutely take it.
Are you talking a cow or a bull?
A cow.
Yeah.
Yep.
American-made products are the name of the game for me and the Western Huntsman. I really will go out of my way and spend more money to buy things that are American-made and keeps jobs and things like that right here in the United States of America. That brings us to Vantage Point Archery. If you haven't listened yet, wherever you listen to your podcast as, go find episode 201, Vantage Point Archery, with Ryan Corkwell and Jeff Stringer. Those are the founders of Vantage Point Archery, and these are great dudes. They'll give you a lot of the insight and information that you need on picking out your broadhead for this season. Don't wait any longer, guys, because season is going to be here before we know it. It's almost here. I am going to be shooting the VPA Omega with bleeders for this elk season. They have the single bevels, 2-blade, 3 blades. These are great broadheads. They're American-made. They're tried and true. They're tested. I've been shooting them all summer. Really impressed with this company, and couldn't be happier having them as a sponsor on this show. Happy to partner with them. Thanks, guys.
Well, I always go back to, like for me personally, if I knew that there was a bull with that cow, I'm never going to shoot that cow.
And that's
I'd rather just not even tag out.
Yep.
That's just my opinion, or not even my opinion. That's just what my goal is.
Yep.
Now, my daughter, on the other hand, what a heck of a deal that would be to have your daughter kill a cow elk with a bow. You're still talking about installing an arrow into a 700 pound animal.
Yep.
This is what humans have been doing since the beginning of mankind, right? Since we invented the bow and arrow years ago, and so I always go back to like my buddy Michael Bozarth, that he was on the show a few years ago, but he says, my trophy room is my freezer. And I kind of I like that concept, because I'm like I'm in the middle of both of those. I'm not. I don't know that I'd shoot a cow. Maybe. Well, I would if I really needed to fill my freezer. I'd have no problem shooting a cow, and I'm not judging anybody that does. But I'm also not like a major trophy hunter either. I'm just kind of going for a bull. A nice raghorn makes me really, really happy.
Yep.
Right. And so, do you? Oh, go ahead. You were gonna.
I was just thinking, I like the concept of eating good, clean meat.
Yeah.
Like, that is ultimately probably the number one thing that drives me continuously in the woods, is to fill that freezer with non-GMO foods.
Yeah.
And when you have kids at home, you want to pay attention to what they're eating, and good, clean, healthy meat it's important for health.
I tell you what, those that bison meat that we packed
man,
our freezers,
buddy,
holy cow, man!
I was just talking to a guy about a bison hunt too. He's looking forward to it, bringing his wife.
Oh man, we should actually plug that. Like for any listeners that want to do a bison hunt, we got the hookup here.
Oh man,
yeah,
what an opportunity that is.
And I think I talked a little bit about it on the show. This is not like going out there on this is not like coming to Elk Creek outfitting and expecting this 6-day hunt off in the wild country. This is going to a ranch, and the guy is basically showing you which buffalo, which bison is available for you to shoot, and you shoot it, and you get this gigantic haul of meat.
Mm-hmm.
And the Euro mounts are pretty cool too.
They are, and given it's about 5,000 acres of ranch area that this buffalo herd is on, and so it's not quite like here, lean on this fence post and go shoot it. You still got to hunt them, and there's many a times it takes multiple tries to get in on them. And
I didn't get. No, I missed my bison the first shot. Don't tell anybody.
I promise.
my 300 wasn't. I did not sight it in. That was my bad.
Didn't you end up using then someone else's?
I used
rifle?
Corey's.
That's right.
Yeah, Allmiller brought his. I want to say, what was that? I think it was like a 308 or something.
Nice round.
It was a great rifle. Had that great loophole VX whatever scope. I can't remember which scope it was, but oh man. Yeah, perfect shot right there, and he made a great shot too. But I mean, it's like you said, it's actually a totally different experience. It's fun because there's the herd right there, and now we got to figure out how to separate that one right there, and then we got to maneuver and keep up with them, and they know we're onto them, and you got to get to the next ridge quick, and it's fun.
It is a blast.
So,
it is a true blast for sure.
Where can people go if they were interested in booking that next year or something?
The best place is go right on our website, elkcreekoutfitting.com. Look it up.
All right, yeah, and that'll all be in the show notes too, guys. Elk Creek Outfitting. I've been trying to put that in the show notes on all the recent episodes here, but the bison hunt is fun, and the meat, it just makes you feel good. I mean, it's so healthy.
It's kind of
so
neat
lean.
too. You got the yellow fat, the black tongue.
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it's a different type of meat. So, okay, getting back to elk hunting here, I'm curious about you. You said a couple things, and I'll ask the first question. We'll leave because I want to kind of wrap it up with for guys that are already booked with an outfitter for this year. As a separate issue. So we talked about, calling in silent bulls. We talked about, kind of what to do when they're not talking, how to kind of set up that cold calling sequence, and what you're doing. Just so I always like to make sure that we have a lot of clarity in these episodes in terms of what we're trying to get at. The point is you've been covering country. You're not getting bugles. You're not getting elk to. Sometimes it's like a barometric pressure thing. Sometimes maybe it's raining a little bit, and the elk will either go totally silent or they'll be on fire. I don't know what the difference is, but all these circumstances and time of year, obviously, but all these circumstances can play into whether or not bulls are going to be really chatty and cooperative from the standpoint of talking to you. When they're not, sometimes it's best to find some fresh sign, like Rob was just talking about, and start doing these cold calling sequences and trying to call in a silent bull. And your odds, obviously, if you don't know what direction or whatever that bull's coming in at, that can really be challenging to be in the right position to get a bull, or I'm sorry, get a shot on that bull. But if you've got 2 or 3 guys with you or hunters with you, your odds go up that somebody's going to get an arrow installed in the right spot. So that was that discussion. Secondary to that, I wanted to ask you, because again, you, like any deeper type hunting questions with anything, I always kind of think of you, and I want to pick your brain on it. But when you're talking, we talked a little bit about if somebody's okay with just shooting a cow. What about the vast majority of hunters that maybe it's their first? Maybe they've only been hunting for 5 years or less. They've never tagged out on a bull elk. They're not looking for a big 6-point, mature bull. A nice little raghorn will do the trick. Does your strategy, whether it's calling or spot and stock or whatever you're doing during archery season, How drastically does your hunting strategy change when you're just trying to track down like a nice little raghorn for either a client or yourself?
So a lot of it is, let's say early season archery, it just opened, a few days prior. There's a good chance the bulls are still in bachelor groups. So they're not really going to be responding to cow calls naturally. So then you might use light bugles, primarily, and then some raking.
Okay.
That's definitely a good early season tactic. But then as you get into kind of the peak of the rut, things can turn on literally overnight. And then you're many a times the bulls you're talking to are actually going to be the satellite bulls. Them herd bulls, once they get to their cows and they got them rounded up, good luck pulling them off of that.
And about what time in September do you think that happens?
Around mid-September.
Like 15th?
Yeah, right around the 15th, give or take a couple of days, you can usually bet that things are going to turn on pretty heavy.
Okay.
And that can happen. It can stay on for a week to two weeks before it really starts getting into the post rut and starts to die off. But I think your peak of the rut, your cow calling and or bugles can be effective, but then once you get into the post rut, they're not as into challenging each other like they were a week prior or even 2 weeks prior. So then they're more apt to come in quiet. They've been talked to a little bit. They're a little bit more gun shy. A lot of times by then they've lost some weight. Mm-hmm. So it's, I guess, more common to get that silent bull.
Okay, I'm gonna give you like my lightning round of questions here for School of September. Are you ready for these?
Let's do it.
You stretched out your hemi and all that. If you had like a super limited entry tag somewhere in just a world class unit, public land kind of situation, and you had all of September, but for some reason, maybe you were all set guiding for the rest of the month, and so you only had 1 week to do it, which week in September would you be hunting?
I would probably be hunting the 15th through the 20th.
15th through the 20th, just the 5 days in.
Yep.
Okay.
That's just a shoot from the hip. That's probably where I would go.
Okay. And when you see what happens when you're out there, bulls are bugling, and you see a storm rolling in, like not a crazy storm, just your typical September high country, good drenching for an hour or two. Do you hunt during that, or what do you do at that point?
I do because I'm in a timber area. No, obviously, if the wind gets crazy and it can be a hazard to be in the woods.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but
been there.
If it's just you're just a steady rain, not really windy, I love those kind of days because you can still hunt the timber without being busted a mile away.
Yeah. And
you can get in real close, and a lot of times, the closer you can get to that animal without busting them, you have a better chance of calling them in.
Yeah.
Rather than try to call them in from 500 yards away, if you're only calling them in from 80 yards away or 100 yards away.
Do you think that's because you're kind of giving that bull no choice but to come in and check you out?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but I find that same thing with hunting other animals that call. For instance, like a bear. If I'm calling in a bear with a predator call, it's much easier to call one in from 100 yards away than it is 500 yards away. That's just the nature of it.
Okay. So next question would be full moon. How does a full moon affect the way you hunt, or does it?
Yeah, a little bit, but I would say the mid morning is probably going to be a little bit better activity than at first light.
Okay.
And then right at very last light.
So mid, like 10 o'clock, noon.
Yeah.
To noon. I always call it, my buddy Dirk calls it midday madness.
Yeah.
I've called in a lot of elk from like 10 to 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that. I'm trying to think of other lightning round questions I've asked. I always go through the lightning round if it's your first time being on the School of September here. Is there any other factor out there that like you would want to share with listeners, especially like those new hunters? Because I think you and I talked about this last time you were on the show, but there's this instinctual thing that happens with hunters once they've been in the woods for long enough and they've been around these animals long enough. This instinctual thing that cannot be shared, like you can't write it in a book or talk about it on a podcast, kind of thing. Outside of that, like new hunters out there that are just, because that's one of the things that happens with School of September is we get a lot of folks that this is their first year, they just drew a tag, maybe they're DIYing it or maybe they've got an outfitter or whatever, but this is their first time going out into the elk woods. Is there something that you would tell that person to help them either manage expectations or just simply maybe help shorten that learning curve?
Well, I'd say my first suggestion would be practice your shots, and practice at a distance. Here you don't get 50-yard shots, you just don't.
Yeah.
But if you practice at 50 yards, you're sharpening up your 20-yard shots. That would be probably one of the first ones, is practice till that's all you know. Because when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't really have time to think each scenario through. You're now relying on instincts.
Yeah. And
if you've practiced enough, those instincts will come out when it's most needed. With that, and then your equipment, wear quiet clothes. Practice your shooting with the clothes you're going to be hunting in. Trying to draw as quietly as you can. A lot of people don't realize on the range how much noise we make drawing a bow until you're in the elk woods, and it's deathly quiet out there, and that elk whirls and turns at you, looks at you 20 yards away.
Yeah, and
because you heard the arrow come across your rest. I mean,
I know, it's amazing.
But yeah, practice. I cannot emphasize enough. And then don't rush that shot either, because everybody's excited to get a glimpse of a bull. Let's say you've spent thousands of dollars to get to western Montana, and you've put blisters on your shoes or on your heels. You've done miles of tough terrain, and finally that animal the moment is unfolding right in front of you. It's gonna happen. If we rush a shot and we biff it, let me tell you just went from the ultimate high to the ultimate low.
Yeah.
Words can't describe how low it makes people feel when they miss a bull or they make a bad shot on one.
That's a great point. Especially coming from, like, I think of like, for you and I, we live in elk country. We have elk bugling in our backyard, essentially. So if we miss a shot, it's a real bummer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a real bummer.
Yeah.
But think about if you just flew out to Montana or Idaho or Colorado from Pennsylvania, for example.
Yeah.
And that one opportunity is in front of you. And
I've seen it. Let me tell you, I've had guys. I mean, it turns their stomach so bad that they're done hunting.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I don't encourage them taking another shot at a different bull. I encourage, if that's your blood, if you got blood on a bull, we're gonna spend the rest of the hunt looking for it.
Yeah.
And then some.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a painful lesson, man.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk. Let's wrap this episode up with kind of talking about expectations, especially for guys they've already hired an outfitter for this year. They're just kind of gearing up. Here it is, July. Season's just around the corner. I mean, it is literally, for those of you listening, if this is your first elk season and you're going out in September and you're listening to this podcast in July, you are suddenly going to find yourself on a mountain in September, and all you did was like blink a few times.
Oh my word! And it goes by quick.
It does. It goes by so quick.
Even though I'm out there every day of the season, when the season's over, it's like, what happened?
I know. It's
already over.
The dreaded wait until next September.
They're counting the days.
It. Yeah. So I want to talk about managing expectations, because I think that since I started talking about guiding for you here and stuff like that, some of the questions have changed that come through on like my DMs and whatnot, in terms of, or here's another good way to put it. I've got buddies actually coming to hunt with me here at the lodge this year, and I'm really excited to take these guys out. And so, like, you know, one of the biggest questions I've gotten, and Tammy I'm sure gets it a lot, and you've gotten it a bunch, is like, what is the odds? What are the you know, how serious can I be about bringing home a 300 class bull, or what are my chances on even a raghorn kind of thing? And I just think it's good for people to have like real expectations that just because you're with an outfitter does not mean that your odds. And archery elk hunting is a success rate of less than 10%, and being with an outfitter might help a little bit, but it's still hard. It's still elk hunting.
It's still hard.
And so talk to us about that.
I would have to say, you know, the better you come prepared, whether it be your equipment, your health, if you're in good shape, and then being able to communicate with your guide. That's a big one that I see a lot of people failing. These guides eat, sleep, and breathe it year round. They're out there all season doing trail cameras, scouting, getting things ready for the archery season, and so they want your success a lot of times more than the hunter does.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with that.
I would say that if you can get in the pocket of your guide, and if he says, you know, let's set up right here and don't move, wait till I get back, I'm gonna go do a blind set, etc. That doesn't mean put your backpack down and zip through it and do the rubberneck.
Yeah.
That means you do what your guide asks you. And it's only going to be for an hour at the most. And then when it's break time, it's break time. You go over there somewhere out of the way, and you eat your lunch and then get back into action. But also, as far as us concerns, you know, we believe that having the right area. So we spend an astronomical amount of funds on permits for Forest Service land, wilderness land, private land. We want access for our hunters. And that way, if a hunter comes prepared, he's got the best odds based on the area that he can go in. Which, you know, 2.5 million acres that we're licensed to hunt in, that's a lot. Yeah. We've got some of the darkest back corners that don't hardly ever get touched, and if you're in good enough shape to get there, your odds are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But you know, if we show up and we got, you know, light on our gear and we haven't practiced and we don't listen to our guide, yeah, your odds aren't going to be as good as the guy that does.
What would you say are like some of the biggest setbacks for people that have come here that went home empty-handed, and like if there's like a consistent thing, a mistake that is made, a lack of practice, anything like that?
I'd say lack of practice. That's a common one I've seen.
When you say that, like, are you talking about accuracy with your bow?
Correct.
Or are you talking about just being knowledgeable? I've had people I've been hunting with, and they in the heat of the moment basically forgot how to take an arrow out of their quiver and actually put it in the bow and get it ready to launch.
And you know, we've seen it all where, and I'm just going to say this on a worst case scenario, but it's a rifle hunt, a bull steps out, and the guide's through the binoculars and, you know, and talking to his hunter, and he keeps hearing the bolt going. But there's no shots being fired. In the hunter's mind, he shot every one of those rounds.
No way.
But he never actually pulled the trigger.
Wow.
And right there on the ground lays all his rounds that he cycled.
That's interesting, man. You know, in the Civil War, they would, you know, those old muzzle-loading muskets. Yeah. Some guys, they'd pick up these muskets after the battle. And
double stack them.
They'd have like 6 loads charged up, rammed into that thing, because the guys just kept loading and not firing because they were so, you know, frazzled over the heat of the battle kind of thing, you know. And so I could see that. I mean,
I've seen bulls missed in bow season at 5 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not knocking anybody. But I would say that goes back to practice. Practice every angle you can possibly think of, and because a 6-day elk hunt is a short amount of time to kill a bull.
Yeah, it's so quick.
Why not take all summer and do your homework? Get the best gear you can afford. That's just, I mean, I think that's just common knowledge.
Yeah.
It doesn't take good gear to kill a bull, but it really helps you stay out there comfortably, helps you be quiet, helps you in the tough terrain.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, gear is an important thing, and I've always been of the opinion, if you can't afford the gear, still get out there and try.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the experience is going to be more valuable. But
Yep.
but if you can get the decent gear, man, a good set of rain gear will keep you in the field longer than anything else out there. Just a nice set of rain gear that keeps you dry, because that's one of my favorite things in September is when it's been kind of hot, and then all of a sudden we get those dark clouds that roll in midday,
Yep.
and it just drenches for a good hour or so.
everything quiets down.
Oh,
You
man.
can get through the woods quietly.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
as
kinda
soon
nice.
as that rain stops,
Yeah.
almost like clockwork,
Yep.
those bulls will start chatting.
Yep, it's good stuff.
Yeah, so I love it. Anything else that you'd add to that? Like, practice is a good thing. I always like people to have these key takeaways from these episodes, especially for folks that are going on their first outfitted hunt, or maybe their second or third outfitted hunt, and they haven't maybe tagged out. There's things that you talked about being in decent shape. I do want to touch on that for a minute, because talk to us a little bit about like Elk Creek Outfitting. We're in northwest Montana. We've got some serious country around here. What kind of shape does a guy need to be in?
Well, a common one that I hear a lot of hunters talk about after they've been here a couple of days, like, man, I don't understand why I'm breathing so heavy. I've been on the treadmill, 6 days a week, and I'm eating healthy all summer, or I'm running up 3 flights of stairs multiple times a day, and yeah, I mean, that's all good, and that's some of it's just the common nature of the air is different here, and the mountains are steep. And so to get acclimated, it takes a good 2 to 3 days sometimes just to get your lungs acclimated to what we're doing here. By then you're usually sore, and you're usually getting kind of fatigued, but I would say the best thing you can do is obviously do all the above. Get your muscles in shape for hiking. I know a couple guys that'll take, they have a backpack that actually attaches weight to it.
Yeah.
And they'll go do their morning runs with it.
Yeah.
And they come back every year, and they still have to spend a period of time to get acclimated. So,
My wife uses those. My wife uses that weighted vest thing, and I just wear my hunting pack, and
Sure.
we go up right there from the house and go up Beaver. The mountains behind my place.
Yeah.
I almost always say the mountains. When I was scouting the other day on Sunday after church and whatnot, I went up and checked out this river area that I hadn't really checked out before. Man, it looks like some prime mule deer country, man. I found some great spots. But anyway, I almost said it earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's great advice, because a lot of people, and there's another side to that too. Like, a lot of people are like, well, should I get one of those altitude masks and practice with that? I don't know that I've ever heard of that being successful.
I don't know.
More, I just don't know.
For whatever reason, the air density, just to get the acclimating process done, I think is about as important as it is, catching your second wind.
Yeah.
So when you live in Florida and you come out here, I mean, there you're at sea level. Out here, we start at 2,000 feet. So just that right there is completely a different world.
That's down here at the lodge, 2,000, and that's nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's nothing.
We're going another 8,000 feet.
Once you get to that barometric pressure change, there's a very distinct mark on these mountains that's completely different above that than it is below. And so if you take a guy from down south right up into it, man, he's going to be real frustrated with himself for not being able to just catch his wind for walking 20 yards.
Well, it's not anything that I don't know that you could really prep for it, other than like what you said, the acclimation process, spending some time. Like, when I grew up at where I grew up, the elevation at that place on my parents' property was like 4,200 feet, so even higher than here, right? And then I ship off to boot camp, which is San Diego California, so I'm at
Much lower.
0 feet,
Yeah.
and I could run like Forrest Gump, man.
Yep.
And I could not run very well where I grew up in
Yep.
Salt Lake, just south of Salt Lake there. But once I got to sea level, man, I did. I was like,
That
I
makes a
thought I was
difference.
Forrest Gump. And the same thing when I left North Carolina, where I was stationed, and I came back to Utah. When that summer I got out and I went right into hunting season right after that, and I was struggling because I'd been acclimated to North
Yep.
Carolina, and so yeah, it's just but time, now it's nothing, just time.
And,
A few days
for
makes a big
some
difference.
guys, if you have the ability, I'm not saying that everybody does, but if you have the ability to come out a few days early, get a hotel room, go on some hikes, and take that time to get acclimated, it'll really help your hunt.
Man, I think that's great advice, because think about a lot of the guys that were coming through the lodge last year when I was talking to them. One of them it was like his third or fourth time coming here. The other one told me that this was his once in a lifetime opportunity to come hunt Montana. He's already spent so much money to get here, and the tags and the cost of the outfitter and the flights and everything else to get here. What's a few $100 extra to get a Motel 6 down the road?
Yep.
And spend a couple extra days in the
We
mountains.
have tons of Forest Service trails in the area that you can grab and go.
Yeah.
Just get acclimated. It'll help your hunt a lot for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been really good information. Again, guys, I'm talking to the managing guide here at Elk Creek Outfitting in Northwest Montana. What makes Elk Creek one of the best outfitters out there? Because I believe it is, but
Man,
I'm biased.
That's a wide question right there, because there's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
Just on a quick note, 34 years in business, built from scratch. Boss built this place as a young man with a passion for the outdoors, and has run a successful company all the way. And every guide plays a key role into what makes this wheel turn. Most all the guides are locals that eat, sleep, and breathe it. Very passionate about what it is that they do here, and they want a hunter's success. So they're going to spend a lot of time in the off season scouting, trying to figure things out and getting hunts put together for the hunters for their 6-day hunt when they get here.
Yeah.
And then the area, like I had mentioned earlier, we believe that having a massive range of area to go on, whether it be private land, public, state, timberland, Forest Service, whatever it might be, if the hunter is able to go where the guide has done his homework to go, his success is going to be at its best for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I believe this is the largest outfitter in the state of Montana.
I believe so.
From a standpoint of both, the amount of guides, but also the access, both private and public.
Yeah, the day use, and then yes, the amount of hunters that are run through underneath this outfitter license.
Yeah, it really is a great setup, guys. If you guys are looking for a guided hunt, I believe we're probably too late for this year, right? We've got to look at 2026 at this point.
Correct.
But,
yep.
This year's all booked up anyway, but if you guys are looking at that, check out elkcreekoutfitting.com and keep your eyes open. There's going to be an Instagram soon, I believe, and we'll probably put some really good content on there that'll help. Just hunters. You can see the outfitter, the lodge, and all that kind of stuff. But you're also going to be able to just learn. Some of the tips. You don't want ticks, I promise. Tips, strategies, tactics, stuff like
that.
Yeah, we have plenty of those. I had one yesterday crawling up my leg. I felt it under my
and
leg.
there's all kinds of other hunts that a guy can do. And just check it out on the website. There's mountain lion, there's wolf, there's bear, there's buffalo. There's your deer and elk and
spring bear, spring turkey,
yep.
Fishing, both there's bass fishing, pike fishing, fly fishing,
yep.
drift boat.
Yep.
all sorts of stuff. Rob took me out. We went out on the drift boat a couple weeks ago, and I almost got carried off by the mosquitoes off that river. I've never seen mosquitoes of that magnitude, but tons of fish out there. So
We won't tell anybody you were the one wearing the shorts.
I learned my lesson, man. I was thinking because I've got a pond at my place, and I'm like, the mosquitoes aren't bad here. They shouldn't be bad anywhere.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
That's great.
All right. Well, Rob, I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, it's
I
been
love
a
bringing
pleasure.
you on, man.
Been a pleasure.
You're just a wealth of information. And I again, you guys listening, check out elkcreekoutfitting.com. There'll be an Instagram soon and all sorts of stuff. If you guys want more information, feel free to hit me up too. You can actually, I got a new email too. You can still hit me up at the jim@thewesternhuntsman.com, or you can do jim.huntsman@eastmans.com. That's a little longer, harder to remember, but it is open. I finally got that one rolling, so I got in there and found like a year's worth of emails that I've been missing.
Oh, no.
I slacked off on opening it up. But anyway, guys, that's all available. Thanks again for tuning into another School of September here in the Western Huntsman podcast. I'd like to thank the sponsors. First and foremost, the actual and only official sponsor of the School of September series is Phelps Game Calls. Guys, jump on phelpsgamecalls.com. See if there's some calls, some new diaphragms. They've got some new bugle tubes. That new carbon fiber tube is amazing. Check all that out. Use promo code Huntsman10 at checkout to save you 10%. And a huge shout out to Loophole Optics, Browning. Let's see here. Mystery Ranch, Secure It, Barnes Bullets, Silencer Central. You guys, this show would not happen without those sponsors, so I just really appreciate them, and I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will talk to you next time. We'll see you.